Good morning. Thank you for joining us for our webinar today on the topic of consolidating sourcing providers. This is an important topic and it's very timely for the economic conditions going into 2009. Nearly every company has some kind of sourcing program or has service providers, whether they are being used for staff augmentation or in an offshore program, whether they are local contractors or an agreement with an international or global provider. Nearly every company has some combination of sourcing providers, and the ability to consolidate and streamline those programs can be a source of greater efficiency and impact on business, driving cost out or results up in your organization. My name is Dean Davison. I will be your host today, and I am the lead consultant at Collabera Consulting for the Sourcing Strategies practice. Collabera Consulting is a $300 million outsourcing provider. It has around 4,000 people globally, and it provides solutions to both mid-range companies and to a select group of Fortune 100 providers. It is a company that is increasingly focused on integrated solutions for information technology. And one of the areas we've been developing business in is the area that I lead, which is the sourcing strategies practice. Many of our customers have come to Collabera and asked us for additional strategic advice, for additional strategic assistance with their issues in the sourcing arena. And we are developing and ramping up those capabilities to help them be able to optimize those. And the ability to consolidate service providers is one area in which we're focused. With that as a foundation, let's move into the outsourcing specific content. And what you see on this slide on the right-hand side is a traditional sourcing life cycle. You see the idea of defining the objectives. What does the organization need to accomplish? In the second phase, assessing opportunities, which includes, of course, considering the internal capabilities against those that a third-party provider or an outsourcing provider can deliver. The third phase is actually outsourcing and choosing a provider. And then the fourth phase is typically the one that lasts the longest, which is managing the ongoing results. And instead of it being a one-time purchase, outsourcing relationships usually last 3, 5, or more years. And so managing those results over the long term, including the ability to change and modify the contract, becomes very important. Now, as I said a few minutes ago, in the last 5 to 7 years, nearly every IT organization has rolled out some kind of offshore, some kind of staffing, or some kind of sourcing program. And they may be consistent across the company, but most are not. Most have different programs that vary by business units, by geographical or by geography. Others have them that range even between project managers who've gone out and purchased their own set of services from providers. In some cases, there is inconsistency in the contracts, the master services agreements, the service level requirements, or even the performance incentives such as bonuses or penalties. And so corporations are working very hard to drive standardization, to consolidate, to streamline. In some cases, that may mean that in your situation, you are trying to use your global footprint to negotiate better agreements. In other cases, it may mean that you're simply looking for better consistency between projects. In other cases, it may mean that you have such a variety of providers that you are unable to really know who's delivering and who is not, and to anticipate performance surprises or performance problems that ultimately could impact business. So as we go through the program of consolidating service providers, we're really looking at providing an overarching structure that says, here is how we as a company are going to manage these things. Here's the way we're going to manage the performance and know who is performing and who is not. And here are the ways that we are going to begin to standardize and structure so that we can control our risk, so that we can control our performance surprises, so that we can control the cash flow from either bonuses or penalties that need to be paid, and so that we can keep great people who are contractors coming back and keep people who are perhaps less than ideal performers from returning. In addition to what we are experiencing here at Collabera, I wanted to throw in a couple of comments here from Gartner, where they make some observations in December of 2008 about the expectations for outsourcing now in 2009, based especially on the current economic condition. We won't go through this slide entirely, but there's a couple of points I want to make. One is that they continue to estimate that outsourcing will be used more, not less, and that economic conditions, economic uncertainty, cost reductions, and those types of changes will continue to drive an increased demand for outsourcing, which is counterintuitive to some of the other services that we're used to seeing, making it even more important that we as professionals get these contracts under control and that we're able to manage and ensure that we get value out of them. The other thing that jumps out on this slide is that there will be more focus on price. Now, price has always been an important part of any purchasing, including outsourcing, but in many cases in outsourcing there has been this acceptance to pay a premium for something that a provider can bring. Maybe it's a unique business solution or insight or some degree of innovation, or frankly sometimes it's even, nobody got fired for buying from so-and-so. But more and more we expect to see that price will become the dominant variable. And in fact, we're even seeing some IT organizations go into what we call reverse bidding, which is to carefully define the scope and the services and then put out bids, and only the vendors who are most competitive in price within that defined set of within that defined scope will even be able to be a preferred vendor in the coming year. One of the reasons that we see price becoming so important is the third bullet on the left, which says increased executive scrutiny of IT budgets, and that more and more, especially as costs are being tightly controlled and spending is being tightly reviewed, that managers are expected to go through additional levels of scrutiny, and that scrutiny is going to reduce the flexibility to pay a premium for something that might be beneficial to the organization but is hard to define or hard to put into a contract. And so within Collabera, we are trying to balance three variables: cost, quality, and risk. And in doing that, there are a number of different capabilities that your organization might require. And some of these may seem synonymous with each other. In some cases, the work effort overlaps. But whether it be that your need is to rationalize strategies, integrate vendors, consolidate contracts, understand risks, or even measure performance, this particular vendor consolidation program can address those needs. And really what we're trying to do are provide benefits to you that say, what are the short-term opportunities with integration and alignment of your service providers? How can you consolidate contracts or negotiate better rates or solutions? How can you integrate vendor relationships, consolidate the actual number of providers, use management tools to effectively measure and govern your providers? Is it possible in your case to quantify or mitigate risks that you may not even know you're exposed to? And again, overall, how do we streamline performance? How do we get more business impact for the same dollar, or reduce the investment to get the same value? Now, I realize that so far in this presentation, I've been using the terms vendor consolidation to mean a lot of different things. And on this slide, I would like to take a minute and talk specifically about several different contexts in which the phrase is being used, because they're not all the same, and even if they are similar, some of the same activities can solve different problems or provide different benefits that you as an IT organization may be in need of.